What's your name? Where are you from? What's your gamer tag?
My name is Christopher Duarte, otherwise known as Parasite. I'm from Los Angeles, California, but I currently reside in Texas.
What are you doing here today?
I'm here with NGNL for the AK amateur tournament. A lot of people came to compete. It's been a lot of fun. I've been casting, doing some breakdowns and stuff with my boy Ace, the Stocksman. Just casting Call of Duty and watching some up-and-coming talent, as well as some pretty established players who are here today.
When did you move to Austin?
I moved to Austin probably about a year ago after living with my parents, or with my family rather, because I was living with my sister for a couple months. I'm pretty much moving every single year for like the last couple of years. Just trying to obviously be as autonomous as possible. Never really liked living with my parents. It's not that I don't like my parents, it's just that I wanted to be independent, right? Like I felt some type of way about kind of just like leeching in a way off my family, and also like my mom babied me a lot, so like it was a good thing and it was nice, but like I felt like in order to grow as like a person and grow as a man, I kind of had to just branch out and take care of myself, you know?
Yeah, I've got a mom tattoo, so we can be mama's boys together.
Yeah.
When did you last compete in the league?
Last time I competed in the Call of Duty League was when I was a substitute for the London Royal Ravens. I was an emergency substitute because Trey Zero, he actually couldn't make it over to the States in time for their matches, so they signed me as an emergency sub. I had a really good relationship with some of the coaches on there. Shane at the time, who's now coaching the Thieves, I had a good relationship there, so I had some really good results in the Modern Warfare 2019 season as a challenger, so I mean, he just hit me up and, you know, I decided to sub for them. Didn't end well. The team wasn't very good. There was a lot of internal issues that were going on with the team, I guess. Performance-wise, it wasn't my best. I don't think it was the team's best, but I mean, it is what it is. I just had to show up. Like, it wasn't my place to be picky. Just decided to, you know, do my my friends a solid, but also, you know, get an opportunity to play in the league again, which was fun still. So.
Right. What was the last active roster that you were starting on?
It really depends on how far you take this. If you're talking about challengers, my final challenger team before I ended up retiring was in the Call of Duty Vanguard season right at the beginning. I was playing with Diamond Khan, who's now part of the Guerrillas. Royalty, who I don't believe competes anymore. I think he's fully retired. Exotic, who still competes in challengers now. I'm not really too sure where he's at.
Take us through the last match of being on main stage. What was that like? Where was it? What was the timeline? Leaving that, what were the feelings there?
Last time I was on main stage, I guess at a serious like tournament, was probably back in, I want to say 2018, before, you know, COVID and all that stuff. Was back when I was playing on Midnight Esports, shady organization by the way. But Midnight Esports, I was playing alongside Llama God, Royalty, Blast, and Frosty. No, not Blast. Frosty and Zaptius. Damn, holy crap. That was such a long time ago. We didn't have the best results. We were kind of a pickup team, but we were really good at hardpoint at the time. But we couldn't close out Search and Destroy, and ended up biting us in the ass, where we ended up losing and getting knocked out of champs. That was essentially my last real time in a league, right? Back in the day, league spots were qualified for, right. So it was more like a earn it type of deal. Not like nowadays with the whole franchising aspect, where it's kind of like you just get to, you know, you either get picked up or you don't. It's not so much about like earning it, right? To a degree, but yeah, damn, it was such a long time ago. I still miss it, man. Like, I don't think I'd ever compete. I wouldn't ever compete again. I wouldn't say no if an opportunity like that arises, but in terms of like actively pursuing it and trying to prove my worth again, I don't think I'd ever go through that process again, because it was very mentally taxing over the years, you know, trying to do so. And even when I was a pro, like trying to prove, you know, the caliber of player that I was to other people was very hard. Very hard mentally. So you graduated high school, and what happened next with you wanting to take the next step and competing? Well, I graduated high school at the time. I was still competing, I think, in like towards the beginning of Black Ops 2, and I was doing fairly well as a streamer. and I felt like the scene was growing, and I wanted to see where that took me. So I just essentially said, I'm gonna take a year off of school, and I'm gonna continue to pursue the gaming thing, because I was at the top of my game at the time, and I was like, I want to see where this can take me. And then fast forward, a couple months into 2013, and Black Ops 2 releases, and I keep streaming that, and I find myself in a good situation on a good team, grinding that, and then eventually we go on to win, our first tournament with Farico Impact back in MLG Dallas. And then there was just a string of tournaments coming up. We just, kept grinding, and then eventually I won Champs. That was back when Champs was at towards the middle of the year, if not the beginning of the year. And that was like an insanely surreal experience, right? It felt like, with the amount of money back in the day, I think the prize was $100,000 split for 4 people. And it was an insane experience. I just was mind blown at the match. Was it 100? No, we each won $100,000.
Oh,
that's what it was. So we each got $100,000.
Small detail,
right? Yeah, sorry, it's been a long time. We each made $100,000, and at that time, that was a lot of money. I mean, it's still a lot of money, right? And after I won that, I was like, wow, I can really do this. And then, my career took off from that point on, right? I was on one of the best, if not the best teams in the game. From a streaming perspective, that was at the height of Call of Duty, I think, when it came to like streaming and content creation, right? Back when Call of Duty competitive and the games were a lot of fun and everyone loved it. And I was getting thousands of viewers, and it was so much fun.
Who were you with at the time?
It was me, Karma, Killa, and Miracles at the time. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were a very toxic team. We loved to talk shit. It was back in the days where Call of Duty was more like the WWE and less like the NBA or something.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West out there. So, but we were all teenagers, man. We were all very passionate, egotistical, right? All we did was play COD. Like we didn't grow up in the real world. Like we grew up in a fantasy land, right? So everyone was like that. But it was a lot of fun looking back on it.
If you could drop back into one point in your career and then relive all of that and then do all of this again, where would it be at?
Right at that point.
Right there?
Right at that point, at the height of what people would say is the height of my career, winning worlds, and then just kind of redoing that whole process, maybe with the knowledge I have now. Could have potentially taken my career in a better direction. Admittedly, I was not the nicest human being at the time, and definitely came back to bite me in the ass as I got older. But at the end of the day, you live and you learn. If it wasn't for those lessons, I probably wouldn't have the mentality that I do now.
So you would have been nicer.
Definitely would have been a lot more respectful of my fellow teammates and fellow competitors. Just led a better example, been more positive. Because a lot of people, still look back at those memories fondly, and at the end of the day, people look back at it in a positive way. A lot of people that still look up to me or like talk about me in a fond light, or like, oh, dude, I remember those days. Those were funny. They were fun. But at the end of the day, like seeing how many people's lives I impacted one way or another, whether it's negative or positive, you figure if you were probably better yourself in certain aspects, like you could have impacted those lives even further in a more positive manner.
I mean, you made people's entire careers for them. Those guys went on to continue to do their thing. You went on to continue doing yours. You did a good job, so I don't think you should knock yourself there at all.
Always got to strive to be better, man. It's part of the mentality.
Of course, but you can't look back, and say like this, that, or the other. Don't be so hard on yourself. After that roster, what was the next move after that?
Pretty much after Karma sketched on our team, he left and went to team with Envious. The team went through a rough patch where we didn't really know where to take our team. I feel like he was kind of the glue because he was probably a little bit more down to earth in terms of a teammate. He was also probably one of, if not the best players in the game at the time. So finding a substitute for him was hard. We ended up picking up a player named John, who went on to win a world championship in the future, youngin. Very talented guy. We saw some success with him, but overall not the same success that we saw prior. After our era came Complexity's era, where they essentially took over the rest of the Black Ops 2 season. But at the time we didn't know that was going to happen. So we thought that we were better than they were. We thought we had more potential, and we wanted to get back to that former glory that we had winning Worlds. So we obviously kept playing together, and then came the UMG Atlanta incident where we were sitting there playing, and we were playing against Envious, who was a fan favorite at the time, had a lot of older heads on their team, like Rambo. Carmel was on that team, and obviously there was a little bit of bad blood there. We were all young kids, so whenever you left our team, it turned into a rivalry of sorts where we were all kind of spiteful for him leaving our roster. So when we played them, we talked a lot of smack. And then eventually it got to the point where the crowd got involved, because I think like Hastro, who was the owner of the team at the time, and the coach was up there, and he was like talking smack, saying like, oh, like look at like the crowd wants us to win and stuff like that. Like he was bringing that into the whole shit talk. And so they were like, fuck the crowd type of deal, right? Or there's a whole YouTube video on it where it was just like us against the crowd. And then eventually our organization dropped us because it was bad publicity. Obviously we shouldn't be talking that way. And at the time we didn't care. And so our team ended up splitting up after that point, because we just all went our separate directions because of that whole ordeal.
How old were you at the time?
18, 19.
Still a baby, man.
I mean, like looking back at it now, right? Like everyone's like, yeah, 18, 19 years old, you're a grown man. Like people will say, oh, you're an adult. But at the end of the day, in the environment that we grew up in, and even now, I feel like generations are getting younger in terms of like mentality.
Right.
So I feel like it's definitely gotten worse. But even back then, like I might have been an adult, but I definitely didn't feel like one.
Do you still have those days?
I mean, I still have those days in terms of like what I feel like I'm doing, but in terms of the mentality wise, I definitely feel like I'm a lot more mature. But it took me a long time. Like, I mean, not to make an excuse for myself, but if you look at it, it's really not surprising, right? We're sheltered, right? Like kids that are sitting here gaming all day, which I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we were doing. We were just playing video games all day. Not really understanding the world outside of our lives, right? Not understanding the words that we had on, like the impact of our words that we had on others, or even people watching us, right, that looked up to us, probably didn't affect them in a good way or influence them in a good way. So naturally, it kind of made sense that it did take me and others probably a longer time to mature.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. You can't really, go back and take all of it back and change it.
Yeah, but at some point, you can't take all of that. Like that's not your blame to take. It's not any of those guys you're playing with, because you're all the same age, right? So at some point, the org has to be held accountable. Because
I don't know. I think that's more of a societal issue, though. I think that's just like a thing with everything in life. Like people just, and it's like I said, it's getting worse. I feel like just kids and people that are young adults just making worse and worse decisions in their lives, and it's impacting society in a negative manner. I feel like that's just a societal problem. At the end of the day, it is what it is, right? Whether people want to like hold you to that standard, it's completely up to them. But right. I mean, I personally don't hold any of my peers up to the standards, or to that type of standard, or like look back at those memories and I'm like, fuck those guys, right? Like I don't look back at any of the bad blood that I had when I was younger, or any of those confrontations I had with anyone, and been like, wow, like I don't resent it. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, yeah, it is what it is. You know, like if I dished it out, I can take it. Hopefully, people look at it the same.
So you're 18 or 19 when that's going on. What happens when you turn 20?
When was I 20 years old? I'm trying to like remember. The funny thing about COD players, especially people that have been in it a long time, and they can't tell you otherwise. They tell time with Call of Duty years. Like I don't look at it as like my 20s. I look at it during BO4, BO. You know what I mean? I think during my 20s, that was around like the Call of Duty Ghost Advanced Warfare era. That's when my career started to slowly kind of start to stutter. By then, I had been bouncing around teams a lot. I was still pretty talented, but started to bounce around teams a lot back then. It all started with whenever I was on a team called Curse Gaming, and that was back with Killa and Miracle still. So we obviously had the entertaining streams and toxic environment, because that's kind of like, it was a year later. Nothing much has changed.
Right.
And then eventually I got an offer to join Optic Gaming, and that's when like I was like, oh wow, this is amazing, Optic. But I think I still let my competitive fire deter me from taking the most out of the opportunity, because granted I was on Optic, our team wasn't the best. And a lot of people will tell you I was on Optic for like a day, but I was on Optic for about a week before I ended up leaving. And that was around the time, that's a legendary era, because that's when Scump left Optic.
Yeah,
And
for like 2 weeks, right?
He was on Envy, yeah.
Yeah.
And during that time, I got picked up on that team. Placer got picked up on that team, and I think Ricky did too. And we were dog shit. So me, being the competitive person I am, with champs coming up, I was like, listen, I appreciate the opportunity, but like, this isn't going to work out. I don't think we're going to be good. So I left, and then I joined back with Curse. Fast forward, we end up going to champs. I have some controller issues. Our team doesn't play the best at regionals to qualify for champs, actually. We don't qualify. So I missed out on a world championship a year later after I had won it with two of the other guys that I won it with. And it was just like a real kick in the teeth, you know? It was just kind of like almost karma came back to get me. But anyways, I keep competing, just bouncing around teams. And then finally, you know, the hell year that is, you know, Call of Duty Ghosts, I think, 2012 is over. And Black Ops 2 comes out. And that was, well, actually not Black Ops 2 comes out. Advanced Warfare comes out. And that was the game. It was like, okay, it's finally time to redeem myself, right? It's a fresh new year. I had a lot of talent in Ghosts, but I wasn't in the best mindset. You know, things sucked. We didn't qualify for champs, et cetera, et cetera. It's time to get back, you know, into that mode, right? But by that point, I'd been bouncing around teams so much that it was so hard to like find a good team. So I started off the year playing with the same guys, Killer Miracles, blah, blah, blah. We ended up playing the first cup together, and it was randomized seeding for whatever reason, and we got a bad draw, played a team that was good, lost immediately out of the tournament. And then we started basically going down a spiral of like having such a bad seed that we played good teams early and just lost. So we broke up, right? That was like a natural thing, right, to do back in the day. It was the Wild West. We broke up, and I ended up getting an opportunity on a team that was doing pretty good, that found an opening, and I played with, I think it was Mochilla, Ricky, and Legal was his name at the time. And we ended up getting second in the cup. So I was like, okay, I'm finally back. We lost to Optic. That was when Optic almost had their dynasty roster, right? And I was like, okay, I'm back up, right? I got my credibility back up. I did really well. And I stuck with that team going into the first tournament. We ended up getting third at the first tournament, losing to both Optic and FaZe after getting to the winners finals. And I was like, okay, I'm back. Like, I get third the first event. I stick it out with that team. The MLG brings out the Pro League for Advanced Warfare. I'm on that team, and I'm one of the best players in the entire league. I was still playing with that team, and I was doing so good. And I was running a submachine gun, which was weird because I was an AR player in Black Ops 2. So I completely ran the next role, and I ended up getting an offer from FaZe. At the time, it was a great team. They obviously had won a tournament, but they made changes, and I got an offer to play with Enable, Slasher, and Aches, and I took it because I was on a team at the end of the day that was like not really a big known team. Organization wasn't the best, wasn't reliable, and I wasn't teaming with big names, but we were doing okay. But I felt like I could do better. So I got that offer, and I played with FaZe for that entire year, and not for that entire year, up until champs, in which we got third, and that was a really good result. We went 12-0 map count on Saturday to make it to the losers finals. Funny story about that tournament is whenever we came out of group play and they did the groups, everyone said we had the easy group, and it's because we played a team that nobody knew. Their name was TR at the time. It was Nagafen, Remy, Placento, and Aqua, and they were like randoms, right? We played them first round, we lost. And we were like, oh fuck, we're screwed. Going to lose bracket, we're like, okay, we gotta focus the fuck up. We got 12-0 map count on Saturday, make it back to losers finals. Guess who's there? TR. And everyone was mind blown that they made it this far. They were basically a team of nobodies at the time. We lost them again, ended up getting eliminated, but they ended up placing second, right? So it's kind of crazy how that works out. Everyone's like, you got the easy bracket, and then we end up losing to the team that gets second twice. Anyways, Advanced Warfare Champs happens. Our team breaks up. Wild West, man. Everyone was, trying to make changes, but we all wanted to drop Aches at the time. And I also got sent to the gulag, unfortunately, on top of him. And that's when I felt like I was on my final championship caliber team. After that, it was over. Pretty much ever since then, I started bouncing from team to team. I got onto TK, and they weren't very good. They didn't have very good results during the year, but it was the only offer I got, so I joined and I kept playing. The team broke up towards the tail end of the season, and then I was pretty much just screwed. Like, I didn't have a team, no offers, nothing. And then there was this team called Epsilon, which was a form of the TR team that got second at Champs, with a player from Europe called Swanee, and they were doing terrible. They were like 1-11 or something, and I can't remember exactly why they got rid of Swanee, or like Swanee maybe had to go back to Europe or to the UK, and so they needed a player, and I got in. And we were 1-11. We got absolutely blessed. There was a whole DDoSing scandal during the MLG days. They had to reset the standings, and instead of doing like a fresh reset where only certain teams qualified for playoffs, they made every team go to playoffs. Even the ones that had the bad record, they just used the remaining matches for seeding. So we go to playoffs when we weren't supposed to make playoffs. I wasn't even supposed to be there. We make a really good run to winners finals. We choked the living hell out of a best of 7 against Optic. We were up 3-1 in the series, had to win one map. Go losers bracket. We were up 3-0 map count in another best of 7 against FaZe, lost 4-3. So we were in a position basically to win the whole event, and with a team that at one point was 1-11, a team that wasn't supposed to be there. Yeah, I got third, and I pretty much just stuck the rest of the year out with those guys. And then, yeah, that's kind of where I was at during my early 20s, that whole Ghost/Advanced Warfare stage. It was a crazy ride, man. But that was essentially the final year where I was like, I'm on a championship caliber team. And then after that, my reputation just followed me throughout the years, and I couldn't get on any more teams. It was just impossible. Getting on teams was so hard. No really good pro team wanted me. It was always the lesser pro teams, until it got to a point where I basically had to play with people that were around the top 12 range, just outside of the pro league, and try to bring those guys in and win qualifiers and stuff like that. And essentially, if it was comparable to now, it would be like being in Challengers and being a top team. So without the CDL being a factor, it's like I was in Challengers ever since Black Ops 3.
You moved out to Austin in what year?
Last year.
What year was it that you stopped playing for the Ravens?
Ravens I played for them for 1 month in the Cold War year 2021? 2020, 21? Yeah, 21.
So a couple years in between there, you were making your transition to what you're doing now. What is it that you're doing now?
I am retired from competing, and now I am a full-time streamer / a co-host for 2 podcasts. One is The Flank, and one is also the Reverse Sweep, presented by, I think, Deserto. They run that one. So yeah, I do a lot of everything. Even last year, I was playing a little bit of Challengers, for stream content, while also doing the podcast. So I like to think of myself as a jack of all trades when it comes to Call of Duty. I've pretty much been doing every single facet of Call of Duty competitive atmosphere, literally for the last 2 years.
Right. So what are you hoping to see within this Call of Duty? I mean, ranked as of the time filming this isn't even out yet. That was a big part of your stream last year, right?
Yeah, that was pretty much my entire stream. But yeah, I'm just kind of waiting for that to come out, and I want to make more content. The problem that I find myself with when it comes to making content is that I have so many, I stream long hours, so I'd have to sacrifice streaming hours to make those content pieces, because I can't sacrifice, the shows that I do, which are content pieces in themselves. But I want to do more actual YouTube content and stuff like that, because I feel like it'll help me grow, but it'll also help other people, because my streams and in general, the way I present myself to the community is I try to be as informative as I can, because that's something that I was pretty known for when I competed, was just having a mind for the game and just being very analytical and smart, and just kind of knowing the ins and outs of just the way a game is designed, or attachments, weapons, and stuff like that, metas. So hopefully expand on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been listening to you throughout the weekend on the couch, just adding some incredibly high-level analytic value to the streams. There's got to be some game studios that are out there that could learn from players. Do you think that yourself or other players akin would be able to add value to whether it's Call of Duty or other titles?
I mean, there's already been players that have done stuff like that. Aches currently works for Ubisoft as I guess like a game advisor, a game developer. I don't know what his official title is, but he works with X Defiant that still has yet to release. And then Rambo actually did some consulting as well for Sledgehammer back during the World War II years. So, I mean, some certain studios definitely have players. I know Halo hires a lot of people. I'm sure there's other studios and stuff like that that do. But I think, yeah, it could definitely bring a lot of value. I think the way you can teach degrees on how to make a video game. You can't teach degrees on balancing a game, right. Balancing weapons, making competitive fun maps, those are just things that players learn from experience, and people that are essentially just addicted to games and play games and are very passionate about games. And just look at them more than just a game, are gonna understand what people want from, a video game title, whether it's from a competitive aspect or even a casual aspect, right? Those people, there was a reason they play your game so much. They're gonna understand it probably better than you do.
So if you could, with that being said, if you could go back and redesign one of the Call of Duties that you've played and competed in, which one do you think you would change and how?
I think I would change Cold War. I think Cold War fundamentally had it was very good. Map design wasn't the best. They had to bring in a lot of old school maps. But I think Cold War was really close to what an older Call of Duty would feel like, with the additions of newer game mechanics like slide canceling and the field upgrades and stuff. That was probably one of the more fun CODs in recent memory for a competitive game. So I'd probably pick that one. I'm trying to think of any others that might have actually
needed Parasite to come in.
Needed something like that. Maybe like MW 2019. I think that was the first game that was very problematic for the competitive community. Outside of the Jetpack Call of Duties, it was our return to the Modern Warfare series, but they changed a lot of things, and the Warzone community was very happy with it. I think the casual community was very happy with it, but from a competitive aspect, there could have been some tweaks that would have made it better, especially with the spawn system and the map design. I think were not the best, but yeah, I'd say those two probably.
So with that being said, what do you think the competitive scene currently could improve on?
Well, the competitive scene,
the deep breath,
needs a lot of work. I personally just think franchising needs to be out the window. I think that competitive scene in general needs to be built from the ground up. So challengers needs to be, I don't know about sustainable. I still think that players need to take it upon themselves to, have part-time jobs and pursue things like collegiate opportunities and compete in the Tier 2 scene. But I think there needs to be an incentive for players to want to come to Call of Duty and compete in it, because at the end of the day, the older players, they're getting older and they're going to want to retire, and there's going to have to be people that are going to have to step up, and we want more players, we want more superstars to show up and compete in our esports. So personally, I think the challenger scene just needs way more support in order for the pro league to thrive in the future, or the pro circuit to thrive in the future. So there needs to be incentives there for people to play. Pro scene in general, I just think needs to change, mainly from the broadcasting perspective. I think the fact that we are limiting ourselves to things like YouTube deals and not kind of trying to branch out to multiple platforms, if not all platforms, is just dumb. I think we should be trying to reach as many eyes as possible and then worry about monetizing things from there, because at the end of the day, the viewership is very important. If nobody watched, there wouldn't be a pro league, there wouldn't be any tournaments whatsoever. So obviously trying to get as many of those as possible is super important. Outside of that, I think from the game developer's perspective, there needs to be one title that probably gets updated. I know that's wishful thinking, but at the end of the day, I think competitive shooters create longevity, and they create true fan bases of people that are going to be invested in the games long term. Because at the end of the day, if a game is very competitive, it's going to incentivize players to play it for long hours and want to get better at it. And in turn, people are going to support the game and want to spend money on it because everyone wants to have newer skins and stuff like that for a game they love, right? And you look at games like Valorant, CS:GO, League of Legends, and stuff like that. There's casual play, but it's not so different from competitive play. The way I see it is when it comes to developing Call of Duty, for example, the cheesy things in the game that make the game non-competitive and force us to to make gentlemen's agreements and ban a ton of stuff. If they didn't exist, people would still buy Call of Duty, right? You're not going to tell me that some random Billy Bob at home, right, that has a 9 to 5 and just plays casual Call of Duty is going to know the difference if he picks up a Call of Duty title and there's not a Claymore in the game. Right. Obviously that's an extreme example, but it's true, right? They're just looking to get on after a long day of work and shoot their gun and shoot some players online. So, getting rid of certain of these aspects of the game, I don't think would change anything fundamentally, and I get it that it's probably a stretch and it's probably not a risk that they want to take by, taking away certain things nowadays, but I feel like if the game was developed with competitive in mind first and just had casual playlists and ranked playlists from the beginning, I feel like not much would change at all. And I feel like if anything, it would just improve because I feel like Call of Duty as a franchise has done really good to kind of monetize their casual player base. If they expand it by making the game better competitively, then they can do the same with their competitive fan base. And I feel like that's probably a step that they should look into taking, if not maybe even making a completely separate competitive client for competitive only. So I don't know. It's a weird way of looking at it, but I feel like those things could definitely help a lot.
Well, thank you so much, Parasite, for being out here today and being part of this event, man. It's been an absolute blast. So you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to add?
Thank you for you guys for bringing me out. It was a lot of fun, and obviously thank you to all my supporters at home. Anybody that watches this, hopefully that gives you a little brief history of, some of my competitive trials and tribulations, and hopefully for those of you guys that have been around for a long time, hope you guys stick around with Call of Duty. Hopefully the scene gets a lot better, and I'm going to be around for a long time, whether I'm competing, streaming, podcasting. I love COD. It's something that it's been a part of my life for a very, very, very long time, and I hope to continue to be invested in it, for a long time.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for watching. Be sure to tune in to twitch.tv/Parasite to see him go live next. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.